Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily. I'm your host, Ray Flowers. We've got a hot one today, folks. We're talking NFL draft. We're talking Major League Baseball. We're talking NASCAR. Yes, a lot to do in our hour-long show today. Again, I'm Ray Flowers. You can find me on the interwebs at The Ray Flowers. That's Twitter X, Instagram, Threads, all those spots at The Ray Flowers. You can find my work over at fantasyguru.com. Just posted an article this morning talking about catchers. If you heard Jeff Manns and I talking about that on the Elite Sports Show, which is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, you heard us talking about the catcher position. So we decided to write an article about it. And there we go. Oh, look at that. Ray's clicking the wrong thing. So we got an article up at the website talking about that. We obviously have all of our draft analysis. There's a whole live stream that the crew did last night during the NFL draft, all throughout the draft. So you can catch that there as well. Here's kind of what we're talking about today. And again, it's a jam-packed show. We're going to start out with some round one NFL draft highlights on the offensive side of things. I won't belabor this point. We'll be talking about this so much over at fantasyguru.com and podcasts, on shows, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, we had the live stream last night for hours. Jeff Manns was hosting last night. I'll be hosting again this night on Sirius XM. So we'll have all this covered, but I wanted to hit on it a little bit here on the show. I'll talk about baseball. We got some performances on the hill. Yamamoto, Gore, Woods-Richardson, Assad, some bullpen news with Neris and Megill. Joey Bart's doing some things. Brett and Doyle. Rafaela, Jerks and Profar. We'll talk about them a little bit as well. And then we have injury news to update. Three youngsters in particular that are down on the farm: Cruz, Caminero, and Grissom. One good news, Ozzy Albies is coming back. We'll talk about him. And then Jesus Luzardo, this news story broke just mere moments ago. He's been placed on the injured list with a elbow issue, and they're running tests. So we'll talk more about that. Obviously, this appears bad. We'll see. Hopefully it's a scare and it's not only a couple of weeks, but we'll talk about that more with Jesus Luzardo. Yet another one bites the dust, as the Queen song goes. We'll have Rich Maletto come on to talk some NASCAR with us. So those of you that have been enjoying the Fantasy Guru Racing Hour with Sean Engel and Rich Maletto, you get Rich here with us. We'll talk a little bit about this week's races. If you want to join us, obviously at fantasyguru.com, use that promo code FSD20. Sign up for the action over there. This show is, again, Monday through Friday. You all know that, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's stored at fantasyguru.com. Click the Elite Plus tab at the top. You can find it on YouTube live, and you can also watch us there do the show. It's youtube.com/@Elite Plus Network. And then you've got the options on, the podcast networks. You can type in Fantasy Sports Daily, Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, and check us out there. So those are some of the options for the day. We'll talk about some of the deals we have later on the show. I wanted to throw out one of them right now, though, because it's still available as far as I know. It's the VIP plan. Get everything we do, all of the NFL coverage, including the draft, all through the season, all the baseball coverage we do, all through the season, NHL, NBA, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, racing, everything we do in the VIP Platinum membership. That includes everything seasonal. That includes everything DFS. That includes everything wagering. That's everything. Videos that we do, live streams that we do, podcasts that we do, articles, Discord access, all of it, all the sports. Promo code is 50SPECIAL, 50 special. You get 50% off everything we do. Anything that we come up with that we haven't done yet, we have randomly did some, NHL playoff thing. You'll get it, right? So everything in the all-in VIP Platinum package, use that promo code 50SPECIAL. All right. Let's talk about the NFL draft here at the start of the show. It's what everyone's talking about. Again, I won't belabor that point. This coverage is all over the place at fantasyguru.com. There are some highlights in the first round. If you're living under a rock or you don't care, I get it, but football rules the roost, so we're going to talk about it briefly here. Caleb Williams goes to the Bears, as everyone expected. The Bears continuing to pile up talent there. Really impressive, actually. They then added Rome Odunze to the receiving core, and now they've got three potential banger receivers for Caleb Williams to throw to. Justin Fields probably pissed off, I would imagine. He would have loved to have three weapons instead of just DJ Moore, but Caleb Williams comes in set for success. Like, you haven't seen many organizations do this. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, like, wow. Like, Caleb Williams is absolutely set up for success. That's great news for him. Jaden Daniels goes to the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, there's debate amongst the community, where's he going to end up? in terms of his overall football value. He's got that dynamic skill set where he runs and does all that stuff. So he's going to be a fantasy superstar potentially. There's concerns about him in the open field because he takes a lot of hits. But he's going to go to the Commanders, get an opportunity from, I would assume, week 1 to be their lead guy. The Patriots drafted Drake May. They have Jacoby Brissett. So we'll see if May's under center in week 1 or not. Some people say yes. I mean, if there's any concern, they just go Jacoby Brissett, right? They're set up that way. They can work him in. I think that's likely to be what happens, but we'll get obviously way more information as we get closer here. Marvin Harrison goes to the Cardinals as expected. We get that big receiver for Kyler Murray finally. Gets a receiver to go with Trey McBride, and what the other Michael Wilson maybe takes a step now that he's going to be the number 2 guy behind Marvin Harrison. The Chargers at number 5 did what we kind of thought they would do, and a little disappointing. Jeff Manson's been very vocal about this. I'm sure he'll talk more about it today on the show, Elite Sports, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on Sirius XM. He'll talk about that. I'm sure that, they should have grabbed Malik Neighbors, who went 6 to the Giants, and said they went Joe Alt. Joe Alt needs to be an all-pro, and maybe he'll be. He's 6'9", 330, 325, whatever the hell it is. A former tight end, very athletic guy. They went offensive line, and we'll see how that goes for the Chargers. The Giants took Malik Neighbors, so it seems like people such as myself who have Daniel Jones in a dynasty league are going to get at least another year out of Daniel Jones when he's healthy. They passed on taking that early quarterback and went with Malik Neighbors, so they got a weapon for Daniel Jones. So that's how we're reading that situation at the moment. And here's the one everyone's talking about at 8, Michael Penix to the Falcons. This doesn't make any sense. I looked and I searched a bunch of resources and read some reviews, who's the winners and losers of the draft. Every list had the loser with the Falcons, like every list on every site, whether it was Yahoo or CBS or NFL.com, wherever I went, all of them said, and you see it there at the bottom. Tom Pelissero is reporting that the Falcons are the first team in the common era to select skill position players in the top 8 in 4 consecutive drafts. Now they got Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and they took Michael Penix here, right? Okay. That's potentially a dynamic group of talent. I love that. We all love that. It's why we couldn't understand why the Falcons last year under Arthur Smith were running such a crappy basic offense. Well, it was the quarterback play, Desmond Ridder. Okay. Get rid of Desmond Ridder. They gave $180 million to Kirk Cousins. The team doesn't owe Cousins anything. They paid him the contract. But it is weird, and the reports went out about this yesterday. The Falcons apparently didn't tell Kirk Cousins they were going to take Penix. Like, Cousins had no idea. And again, ultimately, Cousins is starting in week 1 if he's healthy, and he's getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars here. So, I'm not feeling bad for Kirk Cousins, but it's very weird that they would sign Cousins and then draft Penix. It doesn't make any sense. They talked a lot about, well, we want to have a succession plan in place, kind of like the Packers did with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. Okay, that makes sense. I get that. Jordan Love was like a 26th pick. Wasn't in the first round in the top 10. Number 1. Number 2, they gave $100 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to bench Kirk Cousins? They're going to release Kirk Cousins? They give him $100 million guaranteed. So this one makes no sense. And they said, well, the worst thing in the world is if Penix is, on the bench for a couple years. That's the worst thing in the world. We're fine. He's already like 23, 24, right? He's one of the older, I think the oldest quarterback that's taken in the first round in forever. I don't have the numbers and data in front of me. But are you really going to keep this guy on the bench till he's 27, 28 years old? You spent a top 10 pick on a guy you're not planning on playing for 3 or 4 years? Bizarre. Just bizarre, and everyone has said it. I'm not the only one. I mentioned Rome Odunze to the Bears. J.J. McCarthy goes to the Vikings as they get their replacement for Kirk Cousins. Bo Nix to the Broncos. Now the Broncos have their quarterback. Obviously, they let Russell Wilson go. He's now with the Steelers. Brock Bowers goes to the Raiders. The Raiders kind of got screwed because 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12. They really wanted to grab somebody. They were all gone. The Falcons, Penix, that one kind of killed the Raiders. So they went Brock Bowers. They had Mayer. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank here. The guy from he's from Notre Dame, right? Let me look this up as I'm talking. They already drafted it. My point being, they drafted a tight end very recently, did the Raiders, early in the draft. And they took Brock Bowers. No one has a problem with Brock Bowers. No one thinks that Brock Bowers is going to be anything other than a potential star in this league. Michael Mayer, that's it. Michael Mayer was the guy I was thinking about. He was drafted in the 2nd round last year. They go take a first-round tight end this year. That's great use of draft capital, Raiders. Again, they got screwed with the quarterback position. They grabbed the best player available probably on their board. The Jaguars took Brian Thomas to, in essence, replace Calvin Ridley, who's no longer with the team. giving them that deep threat. Xavier Worthy goes to the Chiefs, who traded up. I don't know how much this speaks to the potential suspension for Rashee Rice, but they made a move there to give themselves some depth. Xavier Legette went to the Panthers. Obviously, they need another weapon to give to Mr. Young, who had a rough rookie season for the Panthers. Going back to pick number 31, Ricky Pearsall with the Niners. This one's really interesting. All the rumors were circling, and we talked to Armando Marcel on this show yesterday about whether or not Brandon Ayuk was going to get traded. That was the big rumor. Well, we get to a couple hours before the draft, then we start hearing reports that it's going to be either Ayuk or Deebo Samuel that's going to get dealt. It's like, whoa, right? Then you see the Niners go out and take Ricky Pearsall in the first round. Okay. It's a weird fit. So this seems to suggest strongly that the Niners are fully intending to trade either Samuel or Ayuk, and they're going to have Pearsall be the backup plan, right? He'll be the guy that steps in when that happens. We'll see. I've seen a lot of Niner fans. I've read a lot of stuff on social media, and I think a lot of football fans are confused. Deebo Samuel is an absolute monster elite talent. Hurt a lot, and that's an issue. And part of it's because of how he plays this game. But for anyone out there saying, "Oh, Pearsall can just replace Deebo Samuel," you're not understanding. You just don't get it. Not to be offensive, you just don't get it. Pearsall might be a fine NFL player. He'll never be Deebo Samuel. He's got a better chance of replacing Brandon Ayuk than he's got a chance of replacing Deebo Samuel. But yeah, the Niners, this one's a head scratcher too. I think there were two significant, selections. The Michael Penix one at 8, and then this one with Pearsall at 31 with the Niners. People kind of said, So we'll wait and see what the Niners do because there's another move coming. It would be really strange for the Niners with the needs they have to have taken a guy who in essence would be their third receiver as a rookie. I mean, they brought back Trent Taylor. They've also got Juwan Jennings, who's a very good third receiver, not asked to be a leader as a pass catcher. He's more of a guy that does the dirty work, blocks, does a very good job at that. So Pearsall's added. His value is to be determined because it depends what the Niners do. So there's a quick review of the draft. Again, fantasyguru.com will have articles. We had the live stream last night. Jeff Mans is on SiriusXM on his show. He's covering the draft on SiriusXM. We'll have tons of coverage of this in way more depth. But I figured, look, I had to hit this, right? We had to do it. Sorry for those of you looking for baseball, but we had to do it. Okay, let's talk a little bit of baseball. Let's get back to that line of thought here. Last night, I want to start with the performance stuff, but I'm going to flip this upside down. I know what the plan said. I'm going to go with the injury news. Let me make sure that we haven't had any updates here on the injury news in the last 15 minutes since the show started. Okay. The big story this morning, and it just happened 45 minutes ago, is that Jesus Luzardo has been scratched from his start today with an elbow issue. Yikes. We've seen this way too many times before. Yeah, we don't know. The team said he's undergoing additional testing for discomfort in his elbow. I talk about this all the time. I have discomfort in my elbow. I'm not a major league pitcher, though, so sorry, Ollie. Some days I can't throw the ball as far. Yikes. And this is what I continually talk about. Someone asked me a question on Twitter again at the Ray Flowers. It was a deal in an AL-only league. It was Gaussman for... What was it? It was Gaussman for Eovaldi and Tanner Houck. And I know Gaussman's had some issues here, and we're a little concerned about things with him. But still, I said, you got to keep the two guys. Like, at this point in time, even doing 2-for-1 trades where you're getting the best pitcher, I don't know if you should be doing that. I don't know if that makes any sense. And, here we go again with Luzardo. He's just the next in the long line of guys dealing with injuries. And we have no confirmation of how much time Luzardo is going to miss. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 months. It could be the season. We have no idea. But it's just another example. And, I said this. I've said it on this show. I said it on Jeff's show. At some point, Major League Baseball's got to stop this. The product is suffering. If you're a diehard Marlins fan, you're ticked off that Jesus Luzardo is hurt, but you're still watching and following the Marlins. If you're a diehard fantasy fan, following us at fantasyguru.com, we're watching the show every day here on Fantasy Sports Daily, you're going to still follow the Marlins and all the teams. But if you're a fan kind of on the periphery, if you're a fan that's on the periphery or someone who plays fantasy because your boss wants you to or your cousin asked you to, whatever, and you've got 5-6 injuries right now on your team, you're not paying any attention. You're not doing it. You're not buying a hat. You're not invested. You're not grinding waivers out on Sunday night. You're not doing it. Major League Baseball's got to do something about this. And again, that Major League Baseball as an entity can't do anything about this. It's the actual teams that have to do something about this. They must. Someone's got to have the guts, as I've said, to tell these guys, stop throwing 97 miles an hour, throw 92 and stay healthy. Okay. I'm okay if your ERA is 4.2 versus 3.2. I'm okay with that because I need you to throw 175 innings instead of 110. Now, the players are going to say, I'll do that, sure, but you got to pay me as if my ERA was 3.2 and not 4.2. And there's the rub. Because you go through the arbitration process until you get that contract. The arbitrator is going to look at the numbers strongly. And if your ERA is 4.2 versus 3.2, as an example, if all your numbers are worse, your whip is 1.28 instead of 1.18. Your strikeout rate, instead of 9.2, it's 8.2. The arbitrator is going to look at all this stuff. You're going to make less money. So I don't, as much as this is a problem, I don't think there is an answer to this. It's really distressing. What do the Marlins do? What's their answer? And I already had a question in Discord over at fantasyguru.com about this morning. The obvious pivot for the Marlins, who again are already without Alcantara, already without Yuri Perez, are still hoping to get back Braxton Garrett very soon, have already lost as Drew Cabrera. Probably Max Meyer. Okay, now to reiterate what we said earlier, even though Max Meyer was killing it early on, he's really a two-pitch pitcher, which is very difficult to be a starting pitcher, for 25 starts throwing two pitches. It's very difficult to do that and have success. Look at Hunter Green, okay? It's very difficult to do that, number one. Number two, here are the innings pitch totals of Max Meyer the last couple of years. 2021, it was 110. 2022, it was 65. Last year, it was 0 because he had the arm issue and had to have surgery. So Max Meyer has thrown 65 innings the last 2 years. I mean, 110 innings this year, that's probably, if everything goes great, maybe 120 if they really want to push it. Given all the injuries they're dealing with, how much of the Marlins going to push things? I would have to say very little. So there's that cap on Meyer. There's the option that Max Meyer will be treated a lot like the Pirates have treated a guy like Jared Jones. That Max Meyer could be out there dominating an opponent and gets pulled at 59 pitches. There'll be skip starts. There'll be starts where he goes 3 innings. Like, that's the only way this is going to work. So he's probably the guy they turn to, but there are issues as laid out with that. Good news on the injury front. Ozzie Albies had that toe issue. He's back. Woohoo, yay. Positive injury news for once. Yeah, he's back with the Braves. He's been activated. He'll return to the lineup. He's been absolutely fantastic, obviously, this season. Should continue to be that way. I'm very interested to see how the batting order plays out. I'll be writing the cash game breakdown today for fantasyguru.com because Michael Harris had moved up in the order. Do they drop Harris back down? Do they put Albies back in his normal spot? Do they put Albies down and let him get back his feet wet again? Leave Harris at the top. We'll see how it all plays out. So that's a very interesting fact because obviously the spot in the batting order means a ton. Dylan Cruz, 3 guys in the minors to talk about. First is Dylan Cruz. Cruz and James Wood with the Nationals, 2 guys with elite level talent. They could both be significant fantasy contributors as early as this season. Dylan Cruz has a hamstring injury. No one thinks it's serious. There's no blowout. It's not going to take him 2 months, anything like that. But he hasn't played in almost 10 days down on the farm. And they're being cautious and all that. But, he hasn't played in about 10 days. I think April 17th was his last game. So, what was that, 8 days? I can't count. Yeah, 9 days. Not a long-term concern at all. But when you miss 10 days, let's say, 2 weeks, and you're a young player who's developing and trying to get your groove going and try to prove to the team it set you back. So something to think about with Dylan Cruz. This one as well, I don't know. Junior Caminero, Freudian slip, the potential superstar third baseman of the Rays, already had one physical setback that cost him time on the injured list. He was removed from the game last night. No one seems to know exactly what it is. There hasn't been an official report yet. There is a video I saw. I'm assuming it's accurate because it had broadcasters talking. I don't know. It was from an unverified account. It was just someone, I think, filming it on their TV set. But you could see Caminero in the dugout slamming his glove down and was not happy. And the trainer following him down the tunnel. So we don't know what's going on with Caminero, but this is potentially a second physical setback for him. And this is also the issue you deal with young players is that we draft these guys in the late rounds and they're going to save us and they're going to get promoted and have this great – they get hurt down on the farm and it delays their – promotion by a month or 2 or 6 weeks or even 3 weeks. If they're going to get called up on June 10th and it ends up being July 10th, that's significant. So We'll have to wait and see with Caminero. Let's hope it's just a hiccup and nothing major, but there is something going on there. Vaughn Grissom's got that hamstring injury that has taken forever for him to return from. Wanted to note him on the show directly here because while there are questions about his defense that are legit, I don't think there's many questions about his bat. Like, he's going to hit. And, he's someone he's much more of a hacker. He's not going to have a 380 on base percentage or anything like that, but he could hit 275. He's got 15 to 20 home run power. He can still 15 to 20 bases, and he's going to play every day for the Red Sox. They're committed to this, especially with all the injuries, Story, and all the stuff they're doing here. So Vaughn Grissom is almost certain to take over as the everyday second baseman for the Red Sox as soon as he's healthy. He went 1 for 4 last night at AAA in a minor league rehab game. Yesterday, the manager, Alex Gore, was asked about Vaughn Grissom, and he says he's not going to be back this weekend, but he's close. So it certainly sounds like we could see Vaughn Grissom back at the big league level to make his debut in 2024 for the Red Sox next week. So if you're going to the waiver wire this weekend and you're looking for a little bit of boost up the middle, now's the time to get in because we know how this goes. When a young player like Vaughn Grissom gets promoted, there's that push. If you can get ahead of the promotion by a couple of days, you save yourself waiver priority. You save yourself a lot of fab dollars. Vaughn Grissom, to me, is a strong option to turn to up the middle if you're looking for a boost there. All right, let's talk about some performance issues before we talk some NASCAR with Rich Maletto. Yamamoto, he's pretty good, right? And yesterday he had his best effort yet against the Nationals. 6 shutout innings, struck out 7 batters. He's been really good. He had that horrible start the first game out. Horrible start. But he's still sitting here with the 107 whip and a 3.5 ERA through 6 starts, which is really good. Now, the first outing, of course, plays into this, but 28 innings pitched in 6 starts, that's not good for a guy you drafted as the 13th pitcher off the board or whatever the hell it was. But I think a lot of that has to do with that first start and the Dodgers being careful. I've written about this at the website. The Dodgers don't let their guys go 200 innings. They hardly ever let them throw 30 starts. It's just not how they do things. Trying to protect guys, but 37 strikeouts, 6 walks for Yamamoto, 6-1 strikeout to walk ratio. You do that as a starting pitcher, you have success. Like, we talk about this all the time. Let's get complicated and weird. No. Strikeout to walk ratio. If it's 6-1, the league average 2.5-ish. If it's 6-1, you're going to have success. So he's going to have success in that start against Diamondbacks. A really, really good effort from him yesterday. In a loss to the Dodgers yesterday, Mackenzie Gore gave up 1 run over 6 innings, and if we hadn't already gotten there with Mackenzie Gore, it's time to get there. This dude's legit. And there were all the concerns for all the reasons that we've talked about and I've written about over the last couple of years with Gore. But let's talk about where he is right now. And where he is right now is in a good spot. He's thrown 26 innings. He's got a 38-8 strikeout to walk ratio. So not as good as Yamamoto. I don't have my calculator out, but it's almost 5-1. That will really work. He's going to be a strikeout and inning guy for sure. There is still some concern about command and control. But to date, 8 walks and 5 starts. If he does that all season long, he's going to be really good. So the 1.4 whip is elevated. I think that number comes down if everything else is equal. Maybe the numbers, high 1.2s. I'm not anticipating it being a whip that helps. And his ERA might float up a little bit from 3.1 as well. So we're in more of the ratios are solid zone with a ton of strikeouts. And if if he makes 30 starts, maybe he wins 12 games. But he's really impressed me to date. We'll see if he can extend this out because he, at one period of time, was probably the number 1 left-handed pitching prospect in baseball. It's taken a while. He's still young, but taken longer than anticipated. If he can really lock in, this guy's good. He's talented, and he's doing it right now. So Mackenzie Gore is someone that I'd love to have on my team right now if I could do that. Simeon Woods-Richardson, allowed 2 runs in 5 innings and a no decision against the White Sox. He struck out 6. He walked 1. There were people that streamed him yesterday. I thought that was pretty gutsy. Now, again, everyone, we've talked about this against the White Sox is in play. Thought it was pretty gutsy. He went out and was solid. He didn't get called strikes. There weren't swings and misses. It wasn't a dominant effort, but it was against the White Sox. And oddly enough, if you look at the schedule, Simeon Woods-Richardson's next start is also against the White Sox. Now, they'll have familiarity with him. They'll have seen him. And, normally I would say it's the White Sox, so 100% full bore, let's just do it. We'll have to look in this a little bit more detail because it's one thing to say that with a veteran pitcher. With Simeon Woods-Richardson, who's trying to find himself, trying to prove himself, it's not like he's going to be throwing his 5th pitch, right? So if he goes out there and has the same attack plan against the White Sox as he did yesterday, does that work? I think he'd still be in play for the start because it is the White Sox again. But that, makes me a little nervous. It makes me more nervous than just seeing the White Sox on the schedule. Javier Assad had another strong outing. 5 2/3 innings, gave up a run against the Astros. And wow, many people have asked me about Assad, and every time I've basically said the same thing. And honestly, I'm still in that spot that it's, okay, right? I'll pick him up and I'll give him 8 or 10 starts. If it works, great. Am I going to depend on him for 28 starts this year? Do I think he's going to lead my staff? No. But can he be effective and get outs? Yeah. And he's doing that right now. And doing it against the Astros, in theory, when you pull back, it's like, wow, he did it against the Astros. When you look at the way the Astros are performing right now, they've got the weapons. And you always get nervous when you're facing, Tucker and Alvarez and Altuve and the crew. But they're not really performing well. The record's terrible. They're struggling. So, it's not prime Astros that Javier Assad dominated yesterday. Still pitched very well in that 5 2/3 innings and gave up a run. So, again, this is he's in that zone of pitchers. It's going to be very important to us in the fantasy space because of all the injuries we're dealing with. That zone of pitchers that don't dominate, that aren't sexy, that aren't, oh my God, I got to have this guy on my team. I'm going to go make a trade to bring this guy in. Oh my, he's so good. We're not in that zone, okay? But we're in the zone of he's pitching well. We got injuries. We're doing it. So there it is. Javier Assad getting it done. Hector Neris, and the closer grid was recently updated over at fantasyguru.com. Hector Neris was able to throw a shutout inning to pick up the save against the Astros in that game yesterday. That's now 2 saves in a row for Neris. He's, again, looking like he's taking over the 9th inning. Now, Neris has had those setbacks that we talk about all the time. He's not Mr. Consistency. He does have good stuff. There have been many periods in time, where teams have looked at him as their closer because he's had to step up, or they just planned it to go that way, and it hasn't. For those of you that say that closing, one of the keys to having success in the 9th inning is having done it before, hasn't really done it before. They still have Assad and Leiter floating around, but right now Neris is the guy, and that's 2 saves in a row for him. Trevor Megill picked up his first career save for the Brewers against the Pirates yesterday. And this is another one of these scenarios. I said Joel Payamps was the guy to get when Devin Williams went down with the back issue. I'm still in the Payamps zone. Everyone went out and spent a lot of money on Abner Uribe when he came out throwing 99 miles an hour and got a couple of saves. Uribe's whip has flown through the roof. He's been used earlier in games. He's looking like the third option right now. Not even the second. He might be the third option in that bullpen right now. It looks like Megill might be the second option. Again, I'm still a Payamps guy, but this is often what happens, which again is why I dislike saves leagues so much. When Devin Williams goes down, we didn't know who it was going to be. No one knew it was going to be. The team, I don't think, knew. So they weren't deceiving us or anything like that. The Brewers didn't know. So that makes it a situation where, what do I tell you as a fantasy player? And the answer is, I went through it. I spent 5 minutes on this show talking about it, and Payamps was the guy I'm going with. He still leads the team in saves, if I'm not mistaken, but we've got Uribe involved and we got Megill involved. Oftentimes when the guy goes down, it's not one guy that takes over. It's multiple players. And in this case, there might be 3. 2 we can deal with. 3? Ugh. So Megill has pitched very well. I was reading something the other day, I think it was over at Roto World, talking about the high leverage situations that Megill's been used in. He's like the most high leverage reliever in the National League right now. Like, they really trust what he's doing. So Trevor Megill's pitching very well, and he's now obviously part of the save crew over at the Milwaukee Brewers Ball Club. As you can see there on the screen, by the way, buy any MLB product right now with us at fantasyguru.com, either for DFS or for wagering. So it's not any product. There's 2 products. Get one of the 2 products. Get the MLB DFS package. Get the MLB wagering package. Get either one of those, and you get all the other sports we cover besides football for free. So you get MMA, soccer, racing, NHL, NBA, PGA. You get all of it for free if you get the MLB DFS or the MLB wagering package. And maybe you had great hopes for your fantasy squad this year. Maybe you put together a banging team. I've done that myself. And maybe you're looking at it now and it's not happening, right? And you're like thinking to yourself, well, I still love baseball. I still want to be involved. Pick up the DFS package at fantasyguru.com. Pick up the wagering package at fantasyguru.com. Why not? Why not? I look at my and I've said this before, here's just one example. My keeper league. Currently on the injured list: Shane Baz, Taj Bradley, Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, Brian Wu. Like those guys all legitimately could be top 30, let's say top 40 pitchers. And at worst, let's say top 50. I got 5 top 50 pitchers on the injured list. Are you dealing with stuff like that? I'm sure you are. And so maybe you want to stay involved. I'm just saying, get the DFS package over at fantasyguru.com. And do that by signing up for the baseball or signing up for the I'm trying to do 2 things here at once, guys. Sorry about that. Or sign up for the wagering package at fantasyguru.com. Okay, let's get back to baseball. What are we talking about next? We're talking about Joey Bart. Joey Bart, the failed prospect of the Giants. Wow. He gets traded, and all of a sudden he starts hitting. Joey Bart, was he the 3rd pick? He was the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft coming out. He was the 2nd pick in the draft coming out of school. And the hope was the Giants that I would turn into a 30 home run, 90 RBI guy and be a prototypical 5th hitter at the big league level. Flamed out spectacularly. Everyone liked him with the Giants, but he worked hard and all these kind of things. Defense is solid, but the bat just never came around. He has holes in his game, and he can never close the holes. So they let him go. He's with the Pirates now. All of a sudden, he's with the Pirates, and he's got an 1,100 OPS. Now, it's been 7 games, okay? So let's not go bananas crazy here. We'll say that his exit velocity is 91 miles an hour, his barrel rate's 20%, his hard hit rate is 60%. Those are all factors of him having 15 balls in play, right? So it's completely sample size driven. But it is a reminder that if pitchers make a mistake, he's the classic mistake hitter. If pitchers are trying to hit that zone where you can't cover it and they leak it out 2 inches, he smashes it, right? So this is really a function about pitchers being able to execute. If they execute their pitches, Joey Bart struggles. If they don't execute their pitches, he can mash. He can still do that. He's going to get some playing time here at the Pirates. And, if you're in a 2-catcher league and you're desperate, you got an injury you're dealing with, maybe don't make the move in a 1-catcher league. Even in a 2-catcher league, I'd be very cautious here. We've got six years. When was he drafted? 2018. We got years of him struggling. I can't take a week of work and say, oh my gosh, but it's interesting. It's something to monitor because the catcher position is one, if you're in a deeper league, where we both know, I know, and there's probably more than one of you listening right now. We all know that there are issues at the catcher spot that, hey, sometimes we need to fill with guys that maybe have a little risk. And Joey Bart is one of those guys. Let's talk about Brenton Doyle, who is someone that, I think in deeper leagues, people took Brenton Doyle in the 28th round or the 29th round, and it's like, why? Well, he's a Rocky, which always holds some cachet. He stole 22 bases last year, had 10 home runs. You look at the Rockies, and they don't have a dynamic crew, right? They tried Michael Toglia, now they're trying Hunter Goodman. They've got, Chris Bryant, who's hurt yet again. Charlie Blackmon's not getting any younger. Like, there's an opportunity for a guy like Brenton Doyle to be in this lineup on a daily basis. And if he's got speed, which he flashed last year, okay. Now, there are huge issues here. He had a 35% strikeout rate last year, which, as we talk about all the time, is terrible. Okay, it's not bad, it's terrible. This year, the mark is 29%. That still sucks. But if he keeps it at 29% versus 35%, maybe he hits 250. Right now, he's hitting 330. That's not real, okay? So he can maybe hit 250. Now, that doesn't do any good. League average is below that last year. Hitting 250 works, especially if you're hitting 18, 20 home runs and stealing 25 bases, okay? So here we are through 25 games. He's gone deep 3 times. He's stolen 4 bases. He's cut his strikeout rate. His OPS has gone from 593 to 899, which is a significant jump. And overall, the numbers look good. Now, the batted ball data hasn't shot through the roof. So, I can't anticipate the batting average staying the way it is. He's walking at about a 5% clip. Walking at a 5% clip means if he hits 250, his on-base percentage is going to be 310. So, he's not going to help you out in whether using on-base percentage or batting average. But maybe the power speed plays, and maybe he's in there enough for that to overcome the deficiencies he has. He's got a 450 batting average on balls in play, right? You look at his expected batting average right now, it's 255. So, again, hopefully, if you grab Brenton Doyle, if you're considering doing it now, you understand you should be adding him with the expectation that he's a 250 hitter, not a 300 hitter, certainly not a 330 hitter. But he does have some power. He does have some speed. And that allows him the opportunity to be a significant fantasy contributor, potentially, in 2024. One more situation to talk about before we visit with Rich Maletto and talk some NASCAR. We talked about Vaughn Grissom becoming likely the second baseman for the Red Sox starting next week when he's healthy and over the hamstring issue. Manager Alex Gore also said yesterday that Ceddanne Rafaela, the youngster that plays infield and outfield, who signed that long-term extension at this early point in his career, is going to be their everyday shortstop. So it'll be Rafaela at short. It'll be Grissom at second base, probably starting next week. It's a long season, but let's hope Rafaela plays 20 games there, right? And hope he gets one more game in the outfield because he's got 19 in the outfield. It would really suck if they just made him their starter at second shortstop and he never played another game and he's done at 19 games because we need 20 in most leagues to qualify to position. Some leagues it's 15, some leagues it's 10, but it's 19 right now for Rafaela. So anyway, he'll have dual position flexibility this season, I would assume. Might have come into the season with it anyway, depending upon where you play. But he's getting a shot to play every day, and we'll see if the youngster can live up to expectations that have him as a solid offensive contributor, not a dynamic one, but a solid offensive contributor with multi-position flexibility and hitting at Fenway. That's always a nice thing as well. Okay, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. We talked football. We just talked some baseball. Now we're getting ready to talk some NASCAR. We're going to talk some NASCAR with our boy, Rich Maletto. Let's bring Rich into the show. Rich, how you doing today, my friend?
Good. How are you? Sorry for the hiccups here this morning, Ray.
No problem. I just thought you were leaving me, Rich. I have abandonment issues. I thought you were leaving me.
Never.
Talk to us about the football. You were on last night for 42 hours. How did that live stream go? Talking about the draft.
That was a lot of fun. It's always great when we can all sit around and kind of talk shop and talk football and go through the picks. That was a lot of fun. We had hoped for some chaos. I don't think we got the chaos we wanted, but we definitely got chaos. There was definitely some interesting moves. I mean, it was a first ever draft with this many offensive players taken, this many quarterbacks this early. So there was a lot of things to discuss and talk about, and it certainly impacted the fantasy space. We were talking last night. All of a sudden, those mid to late first round dynasty picks got real interesting. There's some significant value now. So it's going to be a lot more difficult to move back if you're trying to move back. And I don't think there's going to be too many people that are really pushing to move up.
I'm in a dynasty league that's IDP, and we have 50 roster spots. Like we have a full NFL team. And I chose last year to have a great regular season and then lose in the playoffs. So I have the 15th of 16 picks. Yay, Ray. Have your best season in years when you get the worst pick when the greatest offensive. So we'll see how that goes for me. But yeah, are you going to be on tonight? Is there another live stream this evening with you, Rich? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I'll have to double check. I know I've got to get the NASCAR article out, so that was on my plate first and foremost, but I'll have to double check and see if the other guys are doing something like that. It'd be fun. I hope so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, just for those of you that don't know, Rich and I were talking the other night. I don't know what time it was, 11 o'clock at night. Rich is writing articles. I told him to go to bed. So Rich is working really hard for you at FantasyGuru.com and doing great work for us. Let's talk a little bit about the NASCAR side of things, Rich. That's mainly why we have you here. You mentioned that the Dover venue in your article, and this is not the traditional setup. So talk to us what sets Dover apart from most of these tracks these guys run on.
So Dover's unique for a few different reasons. First and foremost, it's a concrete surface. It's not the only concrete surface on the circuit, but Bristol's the only other 100% concrete surface that we go to. They used to race on Nashville, it was concrete, and at Martinsville, the apron of the turns is concrete, but otherwise we're pretty much on pavement. Concrete is a little slicker, a little flatter. It also is a little more bumpy because of the cuts in there. Dale Jr. said earlier this week he'd like to get rid of all concrete. Personally, as a fan, I love when they run on concrete. They just seem to slip and slide a lot more. It's also a mile track, which is not common. We don't have a lot of 1 mile distance circuits. So that's interesting. And really, it's a Bristol on steroids. It's very high banked, and it's 1 mile. So it's very high speed. The cars are very much on the edge. It's a little bit of a mix between a short track and an intermediate track. So it's, like I said, kind of unique on its own. And it even has its own unique nickname, the Monster Mile. They even got a mascot for it, Miles the Monster. So we'll be hearing about that this weekend.
You mentioned the surface is different. Talk to us a little bit more about the track, because I know that you and I have come on here, and in baseball, one place is 330 feet down the line, other one's 336, but they're basically the same. Some of these tracks are running tons of laps, they're not running a lot of laps. You mentioned the bank of the track here, so there's a lot of difference this week, which changes how you're looking at the drivers.
Absolutely. One of the key differences, and we had DFS Marlin on with Sean and I for the Race Guru Thunder Hour, and we covered a lot of this specifically. Mark brought up some really good questions and points. The thing of it is you almost have to approach this weekend like a short track. Like we've talked about the laps before. We do like 68 laps at a road course. We're going to do 400 laps on Sunday at this venue. So just like Bristol, where it's 500 laps, or Martinsville, it's 500 laps, the dominators, the laps led, the amount of fastest laps, it's very, very, very significant from a scoring standpoint in DFS. So we'll treat this weekend a little bit more like a short track. It's not uncommon at the end of the race to only have 10, maybe 15 drivers on the lead lap. I noticed something interesting the other night. Jimmy Johnson has like 27 top 10 finishes, yet he only has 24 lead lap finishes. So that tells me he's had 3 races where he was in the top 10 and wasn't even on the lead lap, right?
Wow.
So we're going to have those dominators chasing place differential. Unlike last week at Talladega, like we talked about on Thursday night a couple weeks ago, this is the exact opposite. We want some of those place differentials, but I'm not going to be fishing for those drivers way in the back, because quite frankly, if they start way in the back, they're probably going to end way in the back. It's going to be real quick that we start seeing cars go a lap down, probably 20, 25 laps into the event. So it's very much like a Bristol or Martinsville in that aspect.
You can find the show that Rich was referring to at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. That is the Race Guru Thunder Hour. You can also find it at the website, fantasyguru.com. Just click on the Elite Plus tab. It's the same place this show is stored. Just scroll down a little bit more. You can find the link to all the shows that Sean and Rich do over there. Eric Jones has got an injury. So talk to us about this. I don't know anything about NASCAR. You know that, Rich. I'm learning everything from you. In football, a guy gets hurt, the guy off the bench comes in. In baseball, guy gets hurt, guy off the bench comes in. How do they handle this when a driver gets hurt? And how does that impact what you're doing in the DFS space? Because I know some of this is the team and the way the car is set up. Some of it's obviously the driver too. Like, talk to us about this whole situation. And is it unique? Does this happen frequently?
It doesn't happen very frequently. Unfortunately, it's been happening more frequently. As we get more kind of up to speed on concussions and impacts, we're seeing this more frequently. In 2022, Alex Bowman missed 5 races due to a concussion. He also missed races last year due to a racing injury that wasn't from NASCAR. Chase Elliott missed last year from a skiing incident. These are pretty much one-offs. Kyle Busch broke his legs a few years ago in a big race. But these things do happen. Racing is inherently dangerous, and these things happen. Historically speaking, they've never really had backup drivers. As everything has kind of evolved and developed, we now have developmental drivers like Corey Heim, for example, who's going to be replacing Eric Jones this weekend. He has been doing a lot of sim racing for the team to test setups, to do things like that. They hire him for that. In addition to that, they hired him as a potential backup if something like this happens. Not all teams do this. A lot of the bigger teams are doing this more and more. It's a way to kind of loop the driver into the team and keep him under your umbrella in case something like this happens, but also as guys are kind of coming up through the series. Corey Heim has never raced a cup race. He's only raced 9 Xfinity events in the last 2 years. He's a very young driver. He's had a bunch of truck races. He's a perennial truck championship contender, but it's not real common to bring these truck drivers up to cup, but we've seen it a little bit more frequently in the last couple of years, like with the Carson Hocevar. But it's one of those things where oftentimes it's linked to the manufacturer. Corey Heim has a relationship with Toyota. It's part of his sponsorship deal. It's part of his contract. Toyota is who Legacy Motor Club races. So you fully expected to see a Toyota driver versus, say, someone like Justin Allgaier, who has some cup experience, might be a good fit for this move, but he's a Chevy driver. He's under the Junior Motorsports umbrella and Xfinity. You don't really see that change. These manufacturers and sponsors like to have their guys. Your point about the team, absolutely. It's always fun when someone like last year, Josh Berry subbed for both Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. We got to see him in high-end Hendrick equipment. And so that's always a good thing to see these young drivers, because it's a good taste. You see a lot of these young drivers come up and they're in underfunded equipment in teams, and you don't really know what they have. They seem to overachieve for what the equipment they do have. So when a young driver like a Corey Heim gets to step up, I don't consider Legacy Motor Club one of the top tiers, but they're coming along. They're doing okay. And if Corey Heim runs as well as we've seen the other Legacy Motor Club drivers do, or better, that's a big sign for Corey Heim in his career and what that potentially can do for him. Legacy Motor Club is really interesting in of itself, because Jimmy Johnson is now a majority owner over there. Jimmy Johnson has been absolutely dominant at Dover. I mean, historical numbers, 11 wins in 33 events. Absolutely led of all the laps run there. He's led 21% of them. I mean, these are just insane numbers. So I do feel like with Jimmy Johnson running this week, there's a little bit of an edge for Legacy to maybe do a little better than they have at some other clubs. Eric Jones has historically run pretty well here. So that team does have a little bit of an edge compared to, say, the other team members like a John Hunter Nemechek or even Jimmy's team. But I think with Jimmy's knowledge of knowing how the car should feel, what it needs to feel like, the team having some experience with Eric Jones there being fairly, decent, running top 10, top 15 times. It's a really good situation for Corey Heim to walk into. And he's running a very cool special Richard Petty STP throwback hat tip paint scheme. That in itself is a cool story. So it's going to be fun to watch Heim drive that 43 around the track this weekend.
Light blue with the red circle. Is that it?
Yep.
Hey, look, Ray knows one thing about racing. I find it so interesting too, because like in football, as an example, on a weekly basis, is it turf or grass? Right. Is it raining, snowing, cold, or hot? That's like it. It's fascinating to me how much in NASCAR, because again, we all know there's a difference between a Corvette and a Kia. We all know that. But it's like, it's fascinating how much like the intricacies are important in this. And it's, I wonder, like, do you sense that when people come to fantasyguru.com and they listen to your show and read your articles, do they like say, wow, Rich? Or are there people, am I dumb? Do people know all this stuff? Because all this stuff you're laying out here to me, it's like, wow, I just never even really thought about some of this stuff.
Sean and I take a lot of pride in knowing our stuff. And I'm going to sound pretty cocky here, Ray. I will put my NASCAR insight and knowledge against just about anyone out there. I mean, put me against a pit crew or a crew chief, obviously I'm out of my element, right? But I've been around watching this sport since I was literally 3, 4, 5 years old, or racing in some aspect, and hearing people talk, and I'm kind of a geek and dig into it. You hit the nail on the head. Cloud cover, temperature, tire or rubber being laid down the track, taking it, the different tire combinations. There's so much stuff that goes to it. The biggest thing I find when I take someone new to the racetrack, they're always quick to say, no, I don't need the headset to listen to the crew. And then halfway through the race, I'm talking about stuff and seeing and point things out. Now they want to listen, and they start to realize and go, holy crap, I didn't realize there was so much to it. Like, I don't know what they're saying, but they're saying they need to add wedge, and the front end won't bite, and they can't get any rear grip, and so they're changing tire pressure, and I don't know what this means. And it's real simple. When the wife and I were watching, and she's cheering on Kyle Busch, and he was doing well. We heard him talk about the changes to the car, and he started doing not well. And she goes, I don't understand. I said, the adjustments they made didn't work. They're going to come back in and they're going to go the opposite direction, and we should see a change. Sure enough, he's going, hey, we need to go back to where we were and then some, go the opposite way. Let's see what we got. They come in for the pit stop. They make the adjustments. And sure enough, he went from running 15th back into running in the top 10, top 5. So there is a lot to it. It's one of those things where experience is everything, right? I mean, Ray, I would go to 1 to 2 races a year. I'm 45 years old. That started out when I was 7, 8 years old, listening to the scanners, listening to NASCAR radio, listening to all these things. And you bring up a really good point, because Mark came on and said, look, I don't know a lot about NASCAR, like pretty much nothing. I started watching it a little bit last year because of the articles and the DFS contest, and he was having success. And one of the things he took or said to us that I really took to heart was when he reads the overview articles and the articles from Sean and I, he is looking for those track tendencies. What makes those tracks unique? What are we looking for? Like we've talked about in the past, how we approach a DFS lineup for Talladega versus Circuit of the Americas versus Bristol are completely different. There are 3 completely different approaches. There are 3 completely different ways to set our lineups. And quite frankly, what Mark does is he takes that information and he knows odds. He understands how odds move and change, what that signifies. And he's comparing odds to price points. So when he sees the odds are real low and the price point is real low, to him, that's a sign this is an interesting play. This driver's probably underpriced. And then what he does is he looks at what we say the track and how we approach the track. Hey, we think guys are going to go lap down often and early. All right, well, we're not going to go chasing those major place differential points to start 30th. We're going to chase 5 or 6 place differential points from someone starting 20th, hoping they get into the top 15. So there really is a lot to it, Ray. I think you brought up some really good questions, and it was fun to talk to Mark to hear someone say, I don't know a lot about NASCAR, but I'm winning. I'm winning money, so let's go.
Jeff Mann says that all the time. And again, you take some guts to say, well, Rich, I'm just going to trust you, but proof's in the pudding, as they say. And you can see there on the screen, folks, you get the MLB DFS package, you get the MLB wagering package, you get all of Rich's work on NASCAR for free. You get all of Sean Engel's work on NASCAR for free. We toss it in there. So check it out. Get one of those packages. Moving to the weekend coming up, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think they've done practice laps or qualifying yet. And there's 2 races this weekend that are coming up. The Xfinity Series Bet Rivers and the Cup event worth 400. I had to read that. I don't know what that even means. But we haven't really gotten into the qualifying and everything yet. So it's kind of hard to say, okay, give me who's going to win and that kind of thing. But what's kind of your early in on those 2 races? Are there a couple of teams, racers that you could highlight for the listeners, Rich?
Absolutely. So the Truex brothers, Ryan Truex and Martin Truex, for whatever reason, these guys have it figured out. Martin Truex has 4 wins, the most multiple wins for him at different tracks. He has 4 wins at Sonoma road course and 4 wins at Dover. It was also the first track Martin Truex ever got a win. Ryan Truex got his first win last year in Xfinity at all 3 NASCAR series levels. Martin Truex also won here last year. They sort of have it figured out. The Hendrick cars in the Cup Series, the HMS group of Kyle Larson, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, they need to be on our radar. It wasn't that many years ago that they finished 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, being teammates with a guy that absolutely dominates this place in Jimmy Johnson clearly helped the entire organization and team. And that touches on some of the things about why we like teams and start to chase them. Joe Gibbs Racing's been kind of okay. I'm not really leaning on them hardcore. The price points for the RFK drivers of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, they're worth it, in my opinion. All 3 of us on the podcast were pushing those guys because of the price points. As far as the Xfinity event goes, I'm really pushing and looking at Sammy Smith. There's not a ton of experience for him here. He did move over to Junior Motorsports. Junior Motorsports kind of has a connection with Hendrick Motorsports. The Junior Motorsports drivers have done very well here. The Justin Allgaiers, the Josh Berry in the past, who's now stepped up to Cup. Sammy Smith had moved into Josh Berry's car. Josh Berry ran very, very well here last year. I think his odds are off at 1,600. Once we have practice and qualifying today, I fully expect Sammy Smith's odds to drop. Chandler Smith, I think, is a little too heavy listed as a favorite. He's been okay here. Nothing great, so I'm kind of fading him. Now, if we see really good practice times, I reserve the right to change my opinion on that. But considering he's the second favorite, I'm kind of out. Cole Custer ran very, very well here last year with Stuart Haas. He's a factor every week, every track we go to, so he needs to be on the radar. He's also one of my favorite picks for the week.
You mentioned fading there, Rich. Is there anyone you're avoiding? Are there any names that you think are going to be hot names that you're just out on this weekend?
Not yet.
Okay.
A lot of the point when it comes for me fading, I try not to get too hung up on practice times because they can make changes and things like that. They can burn you if you lean too heavily on the practice times. We do get the benefit this week of being a shorter track. We'll see consecutive lap averages. Those are very, very, very helpful. That helps us determine long run speed. Historically speaking, if you have good long run speed, you're going to run well. So those things are really crucial. Where we really want to fade guys is someone that probably way overqualifies their car. This week, it's not as bad because it could be a good contrarian pick. So some of the players or drivers I would look at fading, someone like Mark, who's very savvy and willing to take some risk and swing for the fences and has no problem being first or last, he's going to go, I may be the only driver willing or the only player willing to pick this driver. So I'm going to go ahead and pick him. But for me, if Corey Heim, for example, qualifies in the top 5 in the Cup Series, it's going to be very hard for me to trust that unless I see some seriously good practice times, because I'm not sure I expect him to finish inside the top 5. So now we're talking about a negative 10 to 15 points from scoring purposes. Now here again, his price is so low, you could get away with it as a contrarian risky play, but it's high risk, high reward type of situation.
You mentioned one final thing I want to ask you about, Rich, and it's something that we deal with in all the fantasy sports. Like, people always want the information. Who is the play this week? Who is the play today? Who is the bet today? And people want the information at 11 in the morning. That's like, well, the game's not till 7 o'clock tonight. We don't even know who's in the lineup or whatever. So I always wait. Like, especially if I'm doing the bets for baseball, I wait until the lineups are announced. Like, I need to know who's in the lineup. You mentioned kind of the timing of everything. What with how important it is for practice laps and all this kind of stuff. When do you recommend people putting a lineup actually in? Is it Saturday morning? Is it late Friday night? Like, time this out. Like, what's the ideal schedule to actually put bets in or put a DFS lineup together?
So for bet purposes, I do recommend when we highlight I mean, last weekend, for example, I highlighted Jesse Love at 12-1 on Thursday.
Okay.
Said his odds are going to be off. He's hopping in a car that historically runs so well here. His teammate runs well here. He's my favorite pick to win, and he's, 4th, 5th, 6th on the list.
Okay.
So once qualifying happens, I expect the odds to drop. Sure enough, they dropped to 8-1. He goes on to win the race, right? Especially at a place like Talladega, taking advantage of those soft lines early helps. So if you're willing to take a little more of a risk and kind of focus on drivers with a track history or drivers with momentum over the last few races, that's a good time to bet, because obviously Vegas gets sharper once we see practice and qualifying. So I do like to kind of shop those bets ahead of time, and I may lightly bet some of the ones I like, but it's always nice to see practice times and really have it honed in. But again, now you're playing with some sharper numbers with Vegas. Vegas gets kind of, with NASCAR, they can be kind of frustrating. For example, a couple weeks ago, they never re-released lines for the Truck Series after practice and qualifying. So if you got your bets in ahead of time, you were golden. If you didn't, you never got a shot. DK and FanDuel, they'll update their stuff with probably about a couple of hours after qualifying, an hour or two. Sometimes NASCAR puts us in a tight window where practice and qualifying is only 3.5 hours before the race. DK and FanDuel do a pretty good job in 45 minutes to an hour of getting all that stuff uploaded and updated. I'm not a fan. I may put a tentative lineup together just to kind of play with money, but I really don't finalize lineups until, if they qualify and practice on Friday and race on Saturday, I'll do it Friday night or Saturday morning. Okay. If they practice, qualify Saturday morning and race Saturday afternoon, obviously I'm just waiting. As soon as they get uploaded with the qualifying positions, I start doing our lineups, because the qualifying positions are very, very important for our DFS lineups. There's just no getting around that. For the betting, like I said, I kind of like taking advantage of some of what I think we call out the softer lines during earlier in the week, but otherwise you got to wait till they post the lines. I do a lot more of my posting of the bets in Discord once we get up-to-date lines, if they update them, post-qualifying and practice.
That's Rich Maletto, who, again, you could see still. It's available over at fantasyguru.com. Last night when he covered the first round of the NFL draft with the crew, he's obviously here talking to us about NASCAR. You can catch him all the time in Discord. He's always answering questions. Sometimes I tell him, again, go to sleep, because he's always answering questions in Discord. If you want to pester him, he'll get you an answer. Really appreciate you jumping on the show today, Rich. Thank you for doing that. Great talking to you, and let's have some success in racing this week. Final question for you before I let you go. Are you a Ford or a Chevy guy?
For today, or in general?
Just in general, Ford or Chevy. Not for the racetrack, just Ford or Chevy in life.
I'm more of a Chevy guy in life. I drive some Dodges right now, but I'm more of a Chevy guy growing up. I grew up a Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan, man, and Hendrick. I'm burned on the Chevy bow tie. What can I say?
I'm a Ford guy, but
it's all good.
Question. I lied. One more question. Ford they took their brand Mustang, right?
Yes.
And made it into an electric. I was talking to my lady about this yesterday, because it's a nice car, right? And it's 450 horsepower, all the
right.
But they took their prime V8 sports car and made it an electric. What do you think about that?
I'm not a huge fan. I get why we're doing it. I actually really appreciate Dodge's approach. I don't know if you've looked at Dodge has gotten rid of the Challenger. They've gotten rid of some of the other things, but what they've gone to is a hybrid. I'm more of a hybrid fan, just because I feel like that is a better approach. I look at myself, my wife could get away with having an electric vehicle. She works from home, right? Yeah. But we have big dogs, and there's a few times we've had to go see specialized vets and things like that. And so we take the truck and whatnot. For us to go to these specialized vets in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's an hour and a half, 2 hours away, we would have to find a way to charge our vehicle on the way back. Whether that's a half hour or 45 minutes, I can do it on a tank of gas right now. And even if I got to fill up, it's 7 to 8 minutes to fill up a tank and move on. So from a logistics standpoint, it's very difficult. I would love to take that Mustang, for example, on a road trip, and then you got to plan around where you're stopping, versus when I used to take our Challenger on a road trip, I knew as soon as I needed gas, I just needed to find a gas station, So I'm not a huge fan of it. I like Dodge's approach of the hybrid. It's hard for me to get away from that rumble race. My first experience at the racetrack, it was the smell, the sound, the feel, right? And you just don't get all of that with the electric.
Yeah, my last Mustang, I've had 3 of them through the years. My last one was a Cobra, and it was supercharged. And my lady hates bass, which I love. She hates car rumble, which I love. And so now I drive a BMW. I'm an adult now, but I miss the V8 and the Rumble too. So I hear you on that, Rich.
Well, maybe we should take a road trip, Ray, because I give me the bass, give me the Rumble. We'll go somewhere and we'll light it up, man.
Hey, I'm down. That sounds like a plan. Lady upstairs, she's not gonna like that, but hey, we're down. Rich, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. Again, everyone can find all his work over at fantasyguru.com in the Discord. Talking football, talking NASCAR. He and Sean do the Race Guru Fantasy Hour, which you can find over at the website. Just click the Elite Plus tab at the top and scroll on down there. Thanks for your time today, Rich. Appreciate it.
Always appreciate it, Ray. Thank you.
You got it. Rich Maletto of fantasyguru.com. Let's do a quick run through here and see if any news has popped for baseball before I let you all go there. JP France has been optioned to AAA. We heard this report yesterday, likely to happen. He's been sent down. Arrighetti is going to stay in the rotation for now. That's the expectation. Obviously, they're also welcoming back Framber Valdez this weekend. Don't pitch him in Mexico. We've talked about that. He's back out there. I think that's really the only storyline that I'm seeing here that we didn't already discuss. Looking at the comments, the questions today. Again, I got to check this out. I know that there's maybe everyone's just not asking questions anymore. We used to get a lot more interaction here. So I think there might be something wrong with the company we're using to provide this. So I'll give a kick into that. I do see a comment here for Hal. He felt gross knowing way too much about most of the guys getting drafted. Why does Hal say that? Because he just drafted a 44-round Superflex IDP startup league. Way to go, Hal. Yeah, and we're here. That's exactly what we're here for, to help you out with all that knowledge once the football season gets going. Man, I got to tell you, it's too early, right? And I know this is the same time every year, but isn't it too early to be doing all this football stuff? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But we got it all covered over at fantasyguru.com. As you can see there on the screen, get the baseball package for DFS or wagering. Get all the other sports other than football included for free. Don't forget, you can also get the all-in VIP Platinum package. Use the promo code 50special. That's 50% off everything we do. You get access to everything. Every sport, wagering, seasonal DFS, Discord, videos, live streams, podcasts. You get access to everything if you use that promo code 50special and become a VIP Platinum member at fantasyguru.com. Oh, there we go. I'm back. I got a cash game breakdown to write over at fantasyguru.com, so head to that. Hope everyone has a nice weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Have some fun. Stay safe. And I'll see you back here on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. Take care.